Hi there, today's lesson is on working with powers and exponents, okay? So the product of repeated factors can be expressed as a power. A power consists of a base and an exponent, so something like 5 to the second power. So the base is this number here, and the exponent is the number up there. Sometimes you're working with numbers, sometimes you're working with variables. It could be something like n to the seventh power, and that's fine too. Those are all going to be powers there. Sometimes your exponent can actually be a negative number. You can actually have something like n to the negative third power. Okay, that's going to be okay too. Not necessarily with today's lesson, but other times. And what this means is it means that this variable is going to be in the denominator. So you'd actually rewrite that as 1 over n to the third. So whenever you're dealing with negative exponents, that's what that means there. Positive, or it's just going to stay up in the numerator just like that. But that'll come later on, okay? So when you're working with these here, you can write expressions using exponents, because essentially we're talking about how many times the base is used as a factor. So it's 7, in this case here, is like 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. So my base number stays 7, and then I'm going to essentially just add up how many times it's a factor. This is 1, this is 7 to the first, 7 to the first, 7 to the first. And when I'm multiplying like this, then I'm going to simply add. So I'm going to do 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, which ends up being 4. Okay? So when you're multiplying the same bases, then we add the exponents together. So in this case here, when I have variables, I look at the number of y's I have, 1, 2, and 3. So that becomes y to the third. Then I look at the number of x's I have, 1, 2. So it becomes x to the second. So I group the bases together, and then I add up the exponent values. These were all 1, so it just adds up to y to the third times x squared. Okay? And that's through definitions of the commutative property, associative property, is how you kind of group them up, and then definition of exponents allows you to do that there. Now, if I have to evaluate, that means to actually kind of like look at it in terms of a problem up to power, then I'm going to perform repeated multiplication of the product. So in this case here, if I have negative 6 to the fourth, you can see we're basically going to write that down 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to go left to right, negative 6 times negative 6, then take that answer and multiply it by negative 6, and then take that answer and multiply it by negative 6. In this case, you end up with 1,296. Just be careful when you do these here that you pay attention to your sign. Okay, let's use a simple problem here. Let's do negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. Well, negative 1 times negative 1 is what? It's a positive 1. Well, positive 1 times negative 1 is a negative 1. So just watch what happens here. If my exponent is even with a negative number, then I end up with a positive answer. If my exponent, in this case here, is odd, then I end up with a negative answer. So just be careful of your signs when you work that out. The other thing you have to be able to do today is you do need to be able to evaluate when you have variables and they give you values for the variables to plug in. Just make sure you do the exponents first, because exponents, working with them, comes before multiplication, division, addition, subtraction with the order of operations. So you have to kind of plug the numbers in and see what you come up with. So in this case here, if I have m squared plus the quantity n minus 3 cubed, I plug that in and I have negative 3 squared. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. Then over here I'd plug in the 2 for n, the negative 3 there, and work on the inside part first. So 2 minus a minus 3 is change the signs for plus. So I get 5 cubed. 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. And then we add those up for 134. So just kind of plug it in and figure it out. Let's look at a couple examples here before you do your homework. So writing with the expression with exponents, I can see my base is going to be 8. And I count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 8 to the fifth. Here my base is going to be a. And they're all the same, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here I have 5s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5s. So it's 5 to the fifth times 9, 1, 2, 3, 9 to the third. Okay. Now when I evaluate it, that means actually figure out what that means. So this is going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. If I evaluate this one, this is negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. I still have to do times negative 3. 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. Okay, and if I have a fraction, this becomes 3/4 times 3/4 times 3/4. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, just going straight across. 4 times 4 is 16, 16 times 4 is 84. So straight across there. And then finally, if I'm working on evaluating them, then I'm just going to plug that in, plug and chug, right? Plug and solve it. So A is 5, so I have 5 squared. B is negative 4, so negative 4 squared. 5 squared is 25. And then I'm going to add negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. So 25 plus 16 is 41. In this case here, I'm going to do 5 plus a negative 4. And I'm going to square that. So do the inside first. So 5 plus a negative 4 is a positive 1 squared. 1 squared is 1. And the last one here. A is 5. Adding that to negative 4 squared. So 5 is 5. Negative 4 squared is 16. 5 plus 16 is 21. So there's some samples there. Your homework is exactly the same. Work on the odd ones, and we'll see you back there in just a minute. All right, powers and exponents, working on the odds. So here, my base is what? Base is 2. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, so 2 to the 4th power. Number 3, I have 7 and 7, I have 2 of those, times my next base is 5, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, so 7 squared times 5 to the 4th. Next, I have some 8s. I have 2 8s there, so that's 8 squared, times x, 1, 2 of those, so x squared, times 2, 1, 2, 3, 2 cubed. All right. You could switch the order around if you wanted to, but that's just what I have there. The next one, I have a third and a third. I have it twice, so I'll do 1/3 squared. Then I have ends, 1, 2, 3, into the third. Then I have 4s, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the third. Just like that, just adding them up. Next, we're evaluating. So here we have 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64. Number 13 is going to be negative 8 times negative 8 times negative 8. So negative times a negative is a positive. Positive times a negative is going to be a negative. So my answer is going to be negative. 8 times 8 is 64. 64 times 8 is 512. For 15, I have 2 times 2 to the 8th power. Well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256 for that. And I'm going to subtract. 3 squared is 9. And so 256 minus 9 is going to be 247. All right. You might be asking yourself, how come I didn't do negative 3 squared? Well, if I did, this is, first of all, this is a subtracting a positive number. So that's why. So this is going to be, I keep the subtraction the same. Remember with subtraction, you can think about adding the negative. If I did the add the negative, then I'd end up with something a little different. So it just, yeah, just be careful. Well, let me think about that real quick. If I add the negative, then I end up with 265. Yeah. I guess if I rewrite it, well, but you have to square it before you do anything else. So I'd still square it. I still go this way. but I could get it wrong too. Here we go. We're going to do 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 here. So that's going to be 81. And we're going to subtract this part here. Negative 4 squared is 16. So 81 minus 16 is 65. And number 19, negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. That's going to be positive 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. We're going to divide that by 3 times 3 is 9. So 27 divided by 9 is 3. Negative divided by positive is a negative. And going to evaluate here. So we're going to put 2 there and a negative 3 there. We're going to cube it. So 2 plus negative 3 is negative 1 cubed. So negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Positive 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. And here we're going to do 2 to the third plus negative 3 squared. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. Negative 3 squared is 9. So we end up with 17. And for our last one, we have negative 3 to the fourth power minus negative 3 minus g is 2 cubed. So negative 3 to the fourth power, that's going to give us 81. Now we're going to subtract. Negative 3 minus 2 is a negative 5 cubed. So 81 minus, 5 cubed is 125. A negative times a positive, negative, negative, negative gives me a negative answer. So that'll be a negative 125. I'm going to flip the signs there. 81 and 125 gives me 206. And it's going to be positive. All right, that's it for today. Hope that kind of makes sense. You're getting the hang of working with exponents. We'll do some more tomorrow.